5:30, we can get going. Okay, we want to call the meeting to order at 4:30. Let the record show that Melinda Robles, Judge Haggerty, John Utcher, and our newly elected Christina Sanchez is present. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and I hate to break it to you all, but we're going to go into executive session right away on our legal advice from our legal staff. So
Pam, if you can call us.
Sir. Time is 4:31. Board of Trustees will now go into an executive or closed session pursuant to Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code for one or more of the following reasons. 1, consultation with its attorney to seek or receive legal advice or consultation regarding pending or contemplated litigation or for any purpose authorized by law. Discussion about the value or transfer of real property. Discussion about a prospective gift or donation. Consideration of specific personnel matters. Discussion about security personnel devices, or discussion of certain economic development matters. The board may also announce that it will go into executive session on any item listed on this agenda if the subject matter is permitted for a closed session by provisions of Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. Any vote regarding these items shall be taken in open session.
okay, we're back in regular session at what time?
5:36 p.m.
5:36. Public comment. Is there anyone in the room that would like to make a public comment to this board at this time? Hearing none. Item number 4. Can you read 4.1?
Item 4.1, Mr. Mel Hedera, President, PCM, will request the Board of Trustees to authorize the President to execute an amendment to the contract of the college with Dantex Construction Incorporated to include the installation of luxury vinyl tile in certain designated areas in an amount not to exceed $47,000 for the upcoming Trans Mountain Campus addition.
Do I hear a motion?
You want to say?
We usually have one, but go ahead and present what you're going to tell us.
Okay.
Make it good.
Chair, President, Board, thank you for having us here. Paolo is having surgery, had surgery this morning on his knee. I think, hope he's doing well. So
Didn't he have crutches? I said, didn't he have crutches?
He's got a meniscus repair.
Too much golf.
So, well, as the action item was already read, let me tell you a little bit about where we're at, how we got here, and I'll be as brief as possible.
I think you better be as detailed as possible.
Okay, I can go either way. So the concrete slab on this project was placed in July 18 of 2018. There's a typo there, 18. There were some low breaks in the contract that were identified through the process of our materials testing firm. We collect cylinders and they're broken at 7, 14, 28 days. And then if at 28 days they're breaking lower than the specified resistance, they're all flagged, and we keep a 56 cylinder that is broken at 56. So we flagged those things, and so at 56 we broke the ones that had the low strength, and the final strength was achieved. So that was a good thing that happened. But in consultations with the structural engineer of the project, he recommended that we do a step further, which is the Smith hammer test, where you hit it with a piece of equipment and you get some results on long process, and then basically they're translated into the resistance of the concrete, and it's a non-destructive test. And those hammer testing results were also positive, so the structural engineer and the architect have issued a letter stating that the slab is structurally sound. What does that mean? Well, that the building is not moving, it's not caving in, there's no structural issues. So that was the first thing. So, the contractor took, some time to actually polish the floor and present the finish. And it's because they were working, and they were building walls and doing a lot of work. So when they polished the floor, they basically, well, everybody saw the floor, from our team, the staff team, the architect team, and we all deemed it non-acceptable. And so what do we do with a non-acceptable item, right? It's sort of the question. So some of the problems, and some of you have been to the sites, are cracks, and all concrete floors crack. As a matter of fact, we actually induce the cracking by doing construction joints and expansion joints. But there was some excessive cracking, and the word excessive is kind of in the eye of the beholder, but we all agreed that it was excessive cracking. And then there's some oil stains because they had some equipment that was leaking oil, and then the oil dispersed. So those were the main issues. There were some other things with IT floor boxes that were not aligned properly, and they had to fix them, and by fixing them, they chipped the concrete, and so didn't have a picture for that. So what was done, again, with the concrete slab? So we notified the contractor of the non-compliance, the non-acceptance of their aesthetically floor, and so requested a correction. The contractor attempted to correct the situation with a couple of measures. They brought a chemical to try to absorb the oil, and these things happen in the industry. Unfortunately, that whole process didn't work too well. The concrete was dyed. Stained. Worse, it was kind of bleached. Bleach is the word I'm looking for. So it's kind of a whitish color now. They also went and tried to apply an epoxy to those cracks, and by doing so, and then had to repolish, right? And by doing so, well, the results weren't positive. But again, this is a process where you identify a problem, you have to give the contractor an opportunity to correct.
So how are you gonna correct that situation then?
Well, we went through that, and so really now the next step is, okay, what else can be done to the floor, right? Because the concrete is structurally sound, it would be very hard for them to be forced to replace the whole concrete because it is structurally sound. You cause more damage by replacing that whole slab than you are fixing, because it's a very destructive situation, right? So we went and talked to the architect, and the architect proposed doing an epoxy floor covering. This is an epoxy floor cover, and it's basically a thick paint with some treatment, and it covers the imperfections, and you end up with a uniform, and there's different styles and types, but typically a uniform color that is a bit more industrial type. This is done in a lot of factories throughout the world, and there's different levels of epoxy coating.
And that's guaranteed for 50 years?
No, and that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem, and all this has been discussed with staff. So when the architect proposed this, we got a quote from a epoxy coating specialist here in town, and for a product that they would recommend, the cost would be about $40,000, $38,000. We got a quote, and the contractor say, yeah, I'll pay for it. Let's do that. Contractor agreed on that recommendation, and it would be a no-cost solution. So you end up with a epoxy covered floor, like you would have in most factories. But there's schools that have this floor. There's nothing wrong. The floor has been used for many, many years, but there's a challenge here, a little bit of a risk involved, because the floor has been treated a certain way has been hardened. The seal has been hardened, so you have to kind of basically break that seal so that the floor can stick, and that's a challenge. You cannot apply. It's like trying to apply something here, and if it's too polished, it won't stick, right? And so we discussed the issue. There's mixed results with this alternative. So there's a risk involved to the college, which obviously staff was very adamant. And the risk is that the epoxy begins to chip or begins to peel off, and then you have a maintenance issue that nobody wants. So there's another solution that was discussed that is a inexpensive VCT, vinyl composite tile. And that cost is also about $2, $2.25 installed per square feet. And so you picture this, we're talking about, at this point, we're talking about most of the floor, or all of the floor that is of unoccupied spaces. Classrooms, halls, office space. The only places where we don't need to do much corrective action is the unoccupied spaces, like a pump room or nobody's looking at that. So we're talking in general terms so that we can picture 20,000 square feet. Little less, 19, 18,000. $2 per square foot, contractor would pay for it, $2.25, but then you end up with a VCT, which is it's a product that you say, if you go into an apartment complex, that's VCT. And it has some maintenance issues as well. So that wasn't a preferred option for that reason. And it's lower quality material. It's still covering the imperfections of the floor, right?
But it turns yellow.
Well, there's issues with it, yeah. You have to treat it. So these two options were really not, these two options of no cost fixes were not acceptable to the college. And we supported them in that decision, and we worked together on this, and the architect as well. And so the college asked us to look into negotiating a product that they've been using and are about to use in other projects. And that's this luxury vinyl tile flooring, LVT. I'm going to refer to it LVT. Just as a measure of comparison, an LVT costs about $5 per square foot installed, 5 to 6, and the VCT, which is the gray line, is about half. But in about 2 years or so, they're saying 1.8 years, the maintenance that you put on the VCT basically catches on the cost of the VLT. And as a matter of fact, I actually have a couple of samples. Well, I have a book, and I'm going to pass it around so you can see the product that I'm talking about. It's way. There's colors that have been discussed already, and those have the red dots on it. And I'll show you patterns.
That's the LVT.
That's the LVT. Yeah, that's all LVT both. It's just that we'll look at the pattern.
The tile that's up and where the doors go out towards the mountain, what is that tile? You have some tile there on the floor, about the size of this table.
Yeah.
What is that tile?
That's just your typical vinyl tile.
That's fine.
Is that cheaper than this?
You're actually, these are coming into larger, the typical tile is 12 by 12 kind of thing.
Right.
These are larger, kind of mimicking, the ceramic tiles that we have in our homes.
And my question also, if we do it this way, are we gonna make sure that we have enough extra tiles that we may have to
Absolutely,
use?
sir. We will absolutely order boxes to spare tile, yeah. That's common practice for anything that can be damaged with the, concrete. So, again, I'm passing it around. So the cost is about $5 to $6 per square feet. They're guaranteed for 20 years. This particular manufacturer has a limited warranty for 20 years. It's 2 years, correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, the details, but 2 years full warranty, both cost and installation.
Right, that's material and labor.
Material labor for 2 years, and then it starts like your tire warranty starts kind of
Appreciation.
10 years of material.
10 years of full materials, 10 years, and then after that is a percentage.
50%, and 18 a non-25.
Kind of as a reference, you're actually evaluating this floor on a different project, which is the Mission del Paso, and we're actually the staff and us, we're evaluating pricing because there's a request to upgrade from VCT to this. And there's no damage on the floor or anything. It's just because this is much nicer product. And the contingencies on the project can afford it. And I'll get into that detail a little more, okay? I know I'm losing a couple people here with the contingency discussion, but this The colors are different from what you're seeing because of the colors on the screen. They don't do it justice. But this is a pattern that an architect has proposed. This is one of the options. This is another one. And it's all just about kind of a layout. And as you can see, most of it is being replaced, except for the working areas on the back.
So the solid brown is the tile area?
Both the solid brown and the tan.
Oh, you got
It's all,
both of them.
so
Oh,
it's just that you wanna have contrast, you wanna have some.
Okay. I got it.
All right, so let me talk a little bit about contingency. So when we set up the projects, we've always had contingency on every project because things happen, right? Construction is not an exact science. And I'll show you an example. Design is not an exact science because a designer has to imagine things and then put them into paper, and sometimes they miss details. So we never share the contingency with the architect, we never share it with the contractors, but you've been aware of this contingency. If you recall, I think we started at 10%, and we've been decreasing that contingency as issues have been resolved and tackled. So kind of give you a little sample, well, you have the unforeseen conditions on the ground, things that you don't expect. You have owner's requests, like we've had, if on the, for instance, on the project, the TTC project, we had a different entrance, if you recall. We went back and forth with the entrance style because at the time of bidding, we were having tough bids that were not favorable to the college. So we gave a less desirable entrance to save some money, but then when we got the bids, we knew that we had the money and we went back. And that was a change order, that was an owner requested change. Then we have plans, discrepancies and omissions, and I want to clarify something that was, reinforce something that was said last time. Drawings from the best architect are going to be about 95%. That's an industry standard. We're not architects, so I'm not defending my industry, I'm just saying as it is. There's a level of detail that the architect is expected to have that will cover about 95% of the project. You can always pay an architect a whole lot more money, but then there's a law of diminishing returns, right? Because you won't get much value for that, and you're still gonna have some interest. Now, I'm not talking, and so contingency typically pays for the smaller contract, architect mistakes. That's part of the industry. Obviously, there's big mistakes by an architect that will not be covered by a contingency, and we can go into the errors and omissions insurance that they have. But there's little things that are, and where do you establish that line? It's a subjective line. Subjective line, and when we finish the project, when we're close to finishing the project, we'll bring that information to staff about what change orders were caused by architects, and then it will be a decision of you if you want to go and tackle errors and omissions for some of those mistakes. But we've been documenting all that. So give you an example of a contingency, not to beat this horse to death, but this is your Rio Grande project. This is the footprint of the parking garage, and instructional space on the top. These red dots indicate the location of the geotechnical borings that were done for exploration, because the first thing that you do, especially on this project, all projects, but this one's critical because of the weight of it, but you have to figure out what soil you have underneath, and the only way to do it is you enjoy this, you bring a boring machine and you dig a sample, soil sample, and depending on the weight of the structure, you go deep as you need to. So you get these floor samples and you identify what type of soil, what type of bearing capacity that soil will have, and then the geotech and the structural make determinations on the foundation levels. Well, if you see, we had an ample number of holes made throughout, but we actually weren't lucky enough to hit an underground tank that we found. So this underground tank was there for many years ago, and didn't even belong to the college, or I think it was a city back in the day or whatnot. So the question is, who is responsible for finding this underground tank, or who pays for removing it and addressing that issue. I hope you understand that, because the project contingency is responsible for it, because
Just out of curiosity,
I thought we were talking about tile at North Trans Mountain. Why are we talking about parking garage at Rio Grande?
I'm trying to explain what contingency is for. So one of the things is contingencies to cover unforeseen conditions, situations that happen on a job site.
We've been talking about contingencies and contingency fund for 2 years.
Okay, well, I can move on if you want, but I guess my point was, nobody could have foreseen, this could have been a parched water that would affect the foundation, and then at that point, you might have to address the foundation design. All I'm saying is that it's an inexact science. Both the science.
You're trying to explain what happened at Trans Mountain.
I'm getting there.
Yeah, okay.
So here's Trans Mountain, here's your budget. We have a $4.8 million project at this point, and we still hold a contingency of about $160,000. $35,000 of the contingency were because we had contingency for the, not for construction, but for the project as a whole. We have materials testing folks. When you set up the project, you don't know exactly how much they're gonna charge you to do that. So you allocate some monies, and then you kind of draw from the contingencies, less or more. We decided to do some window testing to make sure that they're impermeable, and that wasn't considered at the beginning, so that was another charge. So anyways, we have about $157,000, and so the item that was ready is $47,000 to have a floor that you're considering in other places. It's covered by contingency. It's actually at 1% of the total project cost that we're talking about. 4.8 million. So if you're talking about 50,000, it's 1%. And it's also 1% of the overall contingency that we still hold on the project, which is about $5 million. So I'm submitting to you that these things happen in projects, and they're inevitable in all projects. If you have 10 people watching a project, things still can happen, because concrete it's an issue of even an inexact science when you install it, and the way that you can control the atmosphere, the environment, and things of that nature. So that's sort of my story, and so you kind of stole my thunder about reading this thing before, but I like to request that.
That's my question, yeah. What happens if this tile doesn't turn out the way we want it to turn out? We use the other $110,000 in contingency and rip it all up and start over?
No, of course not, because I mean, you see that, let me try to answer your question. What happens if the contractor doesn't do their job?
Right.
Well, we can go legal with him. We can remove him from the project and bring a bonding company to finish the project. But those things are not practical at this point because the project is 95% complete.
Can they kind of put the tile down in a little area so you guys can go out and make sure they're doing it
It's called a mock-up.
correctly?
Yeah, it's called a mock-up.
Before they start doing it all?
We actually do that for many systems, called a mock-up plan. Absolutely, we could do it. The only thing that the only problem with that is that we have about 4 weeks to install it. So doing the mock-up plan would potentially delay some, because you want to order all of it to prevent from the college.
I don't mind ordering the tile. I just want to make sure it's installed correctly.
Yeah, that's a route that we could take if
What
that's.
if we put a tile and then it keeps cracking? What assurances do we have that it's not, the
It's
cement is not gonna continue?
There's a
cracking?
warranty. There's a warranty from the contractor on any product.
On what?
The tile.
On the cement?
You won't see the crack in the cement, it'll be covered
Yeah,
up.
it'd be cool.
Well, it'd be covered up, but if it starts cracking, eventually you will see it
Well,
because the
he's
tiles
got-
will start buckling.
We've determined through investigation with the structural engineer, who is the expert on the concrete, that the slab is not going anywhere. It's structurally sound.
They got a
What
letter
we're talking about is an
from-
aesthetics thing. It's an aesthetical issue of too many cracks.
So how
to the
much
slab.
of this cost, the 47,000 is coming out of the contingency? But the contingency was coming back to the college if we didn't use it. So either way, it's coming out of our pocket.
and you're getting a $100,000 floor. And an
Which we
improvement.
should have gotten without having to pay the $40,000.
Well, that's your opinion.
That's a fact.
We would have gotten a polished floor. This is an improvement to a polished floor, a significant improvement.
I realize that, but I'm still uncomfortable with, with the idea that, okay, we're gonna put tile on top of this floor that aesthetically doesn't look good. What if there's more than just the aesthetics on the floor? Because I already don't trust that whoever did the floor had the proper cement or mixture or whatever you wanna call it.
I mean, that question has been evaluated and answered. I mean, with any other practical means that could have been done on any concrete, right? It met with the resistance. It's already cracked as much as it would have cracked. And none of the cracks are deep. I want to clarify that. There's no deep cracks that are, dangerous to anybody. Nothing is moving. It's just that there's hairline cracks and a little deeper cracks that are not good for the eye. It's an aesthetic issue.
You're basically saying it's passed the same test you're using at Alberta.
At any other, yes, I mean, at any other, it has the same test, the structural engineer, the geotechnical, the materials testing, they all have approved it from the structural perspective. So there's.
Also, if I may add, the manufacturer has very, very specific installation requirements. And with this type of floor, again, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. With this type of floor, they will prep the cracks. For your concern, they will be filled in so that they don't reflect up through the tile. And again, that's something that will be.
Yeah, because what I don't want to think that would happen, is that later on these cracks, then you see the wobbly tile workbench.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
how much of this is who's gonna pay what?
So we went after the contractor who is responsible for this installation. They are responsible for means and methods. Basically, it took us a while to negotiate this. We went, I think they were gonna pay $40,000 first, and then they're basically paying about $60,000 to $70,000 of the whole system. And the college is paying for the balance, which is about
It's like
$60,000.
63,000 that they're paying for, right?
Can you
Not-
just split that out, the 60, because some of it is the polishing and all that, right?
Well,
The
again,
47 is 100.
they're acknowledging responsibility for the poor quality of the floor, and that's why they're paying a significant amount. Again, they're trying to make it right, but it is very difficult to, in just plain negotiations, without going into different measures, to force them to pay for an improvement to the floor, all completely. We tried, but we cannot respond for them. And to tell the truth, you're getting a floor that you're gonna pay in another campus, you're gonna pay for this same floor twice as much as you're paying now. So if you think of it that way, it's an advantageous thing for the college.
What was it gonna have originally?
It was gonna be a stained floor. Stained floor and the stained, again, that changed because there's been mixed results with stained floors.
What you mean with the stained concrete? Yeah,
There was a portion of it that was going to be stained, the rest would be polished.
polished or stained, yeah. But it would be a concrete floor.
Well,
Again, let me
I'm
just-
glad the contractors agreed to pay, how much, 60?
About from 60 to
But
70,000.
I think the other 47 should come out of your pocket.
Okay, so with that said, I make a motion that we authorize the execution of an amendment to the contract with Dantex Construction, Inc. to include the installation of luxury vinyl tile in certain designated areas in an amount not to exceed $47,000 for the upcoming Trans Mountain Campus Edition.
I second the motion.
Okay, any discussion? I have one thing to say.
Yes, sir.
This ain't gonna happen at the other project.
No.
Yeah, it's happened before.
Yeah, I know, but we're gonna kinda keep,
we.
when you have equipment with oil, you're gonna make sure there's like a little diaper, they call it a diaper. or something.
Yeah.
They didn't have a diaper, did they?
I don't know, I wasn't there, apparently,
Well, you all are getting paid to be there. The rest of us are not.
I I just don't want to be here in a month or
Let me
something.
just say that, our contract's pretty extensive. It goes all the way from the budget, establishing the budget, to helping you hire the architects, overseeing the design, putting projects out to bid, hiring the contractors. During construction, our job is to make sure that the construction goes according to the plans. The slab was poured in conformance with the plans and specs. We did our job. The control joints are where they are, everything. This just happened on the surface. Can it happen again? Yeah, hopefully. It doesn't happen on your project, but.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Call the question, Pam.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Any
opposed?
opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
All right, well, thank you. Let me move on to two, hopefully less lengthy discussions.
Go ahead and read 4.2, Pam.
Item 4.2, Mr. Mel Hedera, President ECMO, requests the Board of Trustees to authorize the President and his staff to procure computer desktop equipment from Dell Incorporated, U.S. in the amount not to exceed $63,667, which includes a 10% contingency for the Valle Verde Transportation Training Center construction project. This procurement includes 73 standard computers with 73 monitors and 7 technology-enhanced classroom computers with 7 monitors. This purchase will be conducted using the State of Texas Department of Information Resources, DIR contract, number DIR TSO 3763, in compliance with Texas Education Code, section 44.031.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Call the question, Pam.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion passes. 4.3, Pam.
Item 4.3, Mr. Mel Herrera, President ECMO, requests the Board of Trustees to authorize the President and his staff to procure computer desktop equipment from Dell Incorporated, U.S. in the amount not to exceed $92,145, which includes a 10% contingency for Trans Mountain Class Lab construction project. This procurement includes 38 standard computers with 76 monitors, 38 engineering CAD computers with 76 monitors, and 7 technology-enhanced classroom computers with 7 monitors. This purchase will be conducted using the State of Texas Department of Information Resources, DIR contract number DIR TSO 3763, in compliance with Texas Education Code section 44.031.
Move to approve.
Second. Call the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion passes. 4.4.
Discussion and action to approve the recommendation of the President to appoint Soraya Hajar as interim dean in health, career, and technical education, math and science, effective May 9th, 2019 through August 31st, 2019, and to increase her current annual salary by 10%.
Move to approve.
Can we have some discussion, like what this is about?
Who seconded it? I'm sorry.
I second.
Before we
Thank
make
you.
any motions?
We can move in a second and then you can
But
discuss.
I want to have the discussion on it
Sure,
first.
I'll begin and I'll ask Mr. Smith to weigh in as well. So, Dr. Penley previously served as the Associate Vice President in instruction for student success. We opened the Vice President for Research Accreditation and Planning. Dr. Penley applied, or I appointed her interim. We then opened it for a national search. She applied, was selected. And so we had a position that was vacant. That position has now been filled. Dr. Mitchell has moved from the position that we're asking you to serve, to fill as an interim up to the Associate Vice President. So we need someone to run that area. So that's the interim. That's why we're asking Soraya, who's had a long history with the college, has done a great job for us, to step into that role in an interim capacity.
Yeah, not much else to add other than when faculty return in the fall, we'll start a search to fill the position on a permanent basis.
Okay, so there'll be an additional search at that time. Okay.
Correct.
It's in there. Got it.
She's
Okay.
just gone.
She's filling.
I would imagine she may be a candidate, but what we're looking at is from now until we fill the position, we need someone to run that particular area.
Makes sense.
Any more discussion? Call the question?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion passes.
Judge, you are scheduled on May, well, a couple of things. Pam, did we get a time on the 15th of May?
Yes, sir. I sent an email out. I received some responses back. There were 3 that said they could do any time on the 15th. One was a 4 o'clock, and I didn't hear back on the others, so.
So you have 3 and 1, so let's
Well, you got
see.
everybody here, let's,
Yeah,
Well,
what time
so
is
we
it?
could do, the proposed times were 12, 4, and I believe 5 or 5:30. I'm not
Well,
exactly sure.
then 4 makes sense, because if 3 said any time, it's fine, and 1 said 4. I see that perhaps we should accommodate the one that said 4.
I agree.
Is that?
That's
the
me,
board's
I've asked
counsel?
for the 4, so that's cool, thank you.
And we do have to make sure
There's a quorum.
we have a quorum that day. If somebody doesn't show up, we'll be in trouble because that's the last day to canvass.
You already know that I won't be here, right? I'm not counting
Well,
as
is
here
there- is
yet.
there anybody that can make it at 4?
I'm the only one that's gonna be out of town, I think, right?
2, 3,
Anybody else?
4, 5.
I
That's
said
fine.
any time.
Okay. So we have 5 that can do that. That's fine.
So 4 o'clock it is?
Do we need to take any action on number 6?
There wouldn't be any action, Judge, but could we read them just so we could demoralize that there's no action for 6.1 and 6.2, please?
Okay, could you read 6.1, 10, and 6.2?
Section 6, action items following closed executive session. Item 6.1, discuss and take possible action regarding potential litigation and proposed contract termination of Daniel Vasquez pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551.071.
No action.
And item 6.2, discuss and take possible action regarding EEOC charges of an administrative complaint filed against Rhonda Brown pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071.
No action.
Have a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting on the 15th for the canvas, facilities and finance is scheduled at 4 o'clock on the 29th, followed by a regular board meeting at 5:30. Swearing-ins,
We will be able to swear in all of the newly elected trustees on the 29th. If you have someone that you want to swear you in, if they're a judge or whatever, they can do that publicly in the board meeting, and you can sign it there. If you have a family member that you want to swear you in for the public viewing, if you come to my office right before the meeting, we can do the oaths, and I can notarize and swear you in for that. So it's just.
I heard Judge Henry calling for a small fee.
Is it the wedding fee?
I'll swear you all in that.
And once the tape concludes, if I could ask the trustees a question.
29th
about
at
that.
what time?
I'm sorry?
29th?
The 29th, facilities meeting at 4, board meeting at 5:30.
I think it would be appropriate if we congratulate all the successful members that got elected.
And do we have a relative?
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you, I'm really looking forward to be part of this.
You made a new standard for all politics, 70% in the first election. Wow. Very cool. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I could